of faith.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me when you'll Memphis.
Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend / my co-host, Devin. And today, we're going to be giving our thoughts and insights, our spoiler-free thoughts and insights, mind you, on the latest film by M. Night Shyamalan titled Knock at the Cabin, which is based on a 2018 novel that is titled The Cabin at the End of the World that was originally written by Paul Tremblay. And before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Audible, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter at FilmOptix. That is Optix with an X. Or email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Devin, oh Devin, happy hump day. Have you had invited any strangers into your home? Any random ne'er-do-wells lurking about your neighborhood?
I don't know. If I saw Dave Bautista in my neighborhood, I might invite him. He seems like a cool guy.
Yeah. What was his name? Leonard? I think he was playing.
Good old Leonard.
Yeah. I gotta say, I'm not gonna lie. Like Dave Bautista, he's been experimenting with a lot of different roles, and I'm excited to talk about this movie today. This wild thriller experience. But how's your week been, buddy? I know it's a Wednesday. We're recording here on a Wednesday, and you know we're over the hump. But how's your week been?
Pretty average week. I started watching Poker Face the other night. It's actually really good. It's like every episode is its own Rian Johnson mystery.
Oh, so it's like an anthology series.
Yeah, it's just they're all starring Natasha Lyonne.
So she's playing different characters all throughout.
No, she's the same character. She's just traveling to different states, and each mystery is different.
Oh, so it's kind of like Benny Blanc, but more TV form. But she's not a detective herself, is she?
Not technically. She's like a human lie detector, basically. It's kind of like how in the first Knives Out, Ana de Armas' character, whenever she lied, she threw up. Like it was some kind of mystical force. It's like that, but she can detect lies.
Oh, so she's kind of like the That's So Raven of the lie detector. That's pretty cool. I like that. I'll definitely have to give that a watch. I got to finish, and I need to commit to one show per, because if I keep jumping around with all these different shows, I'm not going to finish anything. So how many episodes is Poker Face?
There are only 4 out so far.
Okay.
It released 3 first week, and then it's doing weekly after that.
I might be able to, but I do want to, I want to spend as much time as I can with the White Lotus crew. I still got to watch episode 2. So it's just been a crazy week on my end. I haven't really started anything outside of White Lotus, like I said in our previous review where we covered The Last of Us episode 3. But yeah, hopefully I can get some done throughout the rest of the week. It's just been from Monday up until like today. It's been like super crazy. So it's been a wild experience. Went to Luke Bryan and Brothers Osborne concerts on Monday nights. And yesterday we saw Knock at the Cabin, which is we're going to be talking about here today. And today I got some plans after we record. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And then I believe my Tuesday, Thursday should be more smooth sailing because I don't believe I have too much going on. But it's crazy how you can do something every single week, and then still feel like the week is like just taking forever. But hey, it's Wednesday, so that's all I care about. So for today's itinerary, we're just going to get into our non-spoiler sections. We're getting to a little bit of Knock at the Cabin trivia, the ones that obviously don't include the spoilers. Then we're going to get into our final thoughts and our ratings, and then we'll close out with our coming up next section, and then we'll say our final goodbyes. So without further ado, we'll be right back after this introduction to Knock at the Cabin.
Stay
back!
I believe you were chosen because your family's love for each other is so pure. I know you've been through a lot and people haven't been fair to you.
Drop the weapon and move away from Eric, or I'll show you I was chosen to put a bullet in your head. Drop it now, Leonard, or I'll kill you.
You're dooming us all, Andrew. You're dooming your husband. You're dooming your daughter.
I'm done with you! I'm not listening to another goddamn word you say!
It's time for the next sacrifice. Are you willing to make a choice?
You're crazy. I'm taking my family. And I'm leaving.
And we are back. You just heard a little clip from Knock at the Cabin. This movie is directed by M. Night Shyamalan himself and is also written by M. Night Shyamalan, Steve Desmond, and Michael Sherman, and stars Dave Bautista, Jonathan Groff, and Ben Aldridge. And the synopsis is as follows. While vacationing, a girl and her parents are taken hostage by armed strangers who demand that the family make a choice to avert the apocalypse. And I also want to throw another star in there, Mr. Ronald Bilius Weasley, aka Rupert Grint, is also starring in this movie. I was very excited to see him on screen. He has been working with M. Night Shyamalan in his Apple TV series. I believe it's called Servants. I'm not sure if you've watched it, Devin, but
I have not, but I've heard good things.
yeah, I've heard really, really good things. It's another thing in my backlog. God, we have all these backlogs, Devin. It's crazy. Video game backlogs, movie backlogs, TV backlogs. There's never enough time in the world, but we do have enough time to give our initial reactions, our spoiler-free thoughts on Knock at the Cabin. So I'm going to pass it over to Devin so he can give his initial reactions.
Yeah, first things first. Not a great title, I feel like. There's just so many other cabin movies out there. And this one, the Knock at the Cabin isn't really the crux of the whole story like you would think based on the title. It kind of happens at the very beginning and then things start to happen. But other than that, we've covered M. Night a couple times before. I know we did Glass and Old. I've always been a fan for the most part. He always has an interesting view on the world, and I've always liked his perspective as a director. So going into this one, I was pretty interested. I know Old has some negative views attached to it, but I thought it was entertaining nonetheless, no matter how bad people think it is. So this one, I was definitely looking forward to it. Then we've got a nice cast here. And I think for this movie, none of it works without this cast and the performances they put in, because I thought there was great acting throughout across the board here, especially Dave Bautista branching out, doing some different things. I know it's kind of his life's work right now is trying to build up a resume and branch out and do some different roles, and I think he killed it here. The actress who played the little girl, Kristen Cui, she was incredible, I thought. She just brought so much life and energy to that role, especially for a child actor. Hopefully no Razzies in her future.
Jeez, man.
Yeah, that was rough.
That was.
But yeah, Jonathan Groff, he killed it as always. He's king, obviously. Everyone knows him. And I like Ben Aldridge as well. So without their performances, this movie would really fall apart. But I think the performances and the direction definitely helped this movie become an entertaining movie. I'd say at the end of the day, it is pretty straightforward as far as the story goes. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing crazy, insane, but that kind of makes it easy to follow. It's kind of a different route to take from the usual M. Night movie, which I kind of liked. But at the end of the day, I feel like there could have been a little bit more with this ending. But nonetheless, pretty solid, straightforward story.
I would agree with you there, Devin, for pretty much everything that you said. When it comes to Knock at the Cabin, this is based on the novel that came out in 2018, which is titled The Cabin at the End of the World. I think they should have kept with that title. Like you said, Devin, Knock at the Cabin. It's not a bad title. It's just, we have so many cabin movies. Obviously, The Cabin at the End of the World has the word cabin in it, but maybe they just changed it to Knock at the Cabin because the original title of the book is too wordy to say, much like the oh my gosh, the Harley Quinn's movie. I can't even go through that entire thing again. But I do agree when it comes to the performances in this movie, everyone's performance was just off the charts. It had me on the edge of my seat. And Dave Bautista, like you said, Devin, he's trying to build a very diverse resume. And I think he is honestly, I mean, one of the stars of the show. Everyone's like giving it their A game. There's only about maybe 7 or 8 characters that we really focus on when it comes to this movie. And I wasn't sure what to expect going in because, like Devin had said, M. Night Shyamalan is really known for like his big twist at the end. But since this movie is not an M. Night Shyamalan original, he does take a different toll. I know what happens in the book, but we're not going to talk about what happens in the books because I do consider that also to be spoilers. But there is a very interesting twist that happens in the book that I wish they would have went with. But the ending for Knock at the Cabin, it is a standard, I guess you could say, movie ending, if you want to say that altogether. I was very surprised by Rupert Grint's performance. He's not in the movie for very long, but he definitely delivers.
I thought it was really funny. They first did the name Redmond, and I was like, I wonder what character that would be. I wonder who that's going to be.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, that has to be Rupert Grint. And of course it was. And he's also wearing the red shirt. I'm like, wow, this is.
Of course.
Of course. But, when it comes to, these Harry Potter actors, when it comes to Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, obviously everyone still remembers those films, but they really have been trying to break out of that, not comfort zone, but that image that people portray them as. Because obviously we grew up with them, we were around the same age they were while those Harry Potter movies were filming. But honestly, I think they've all been doing great work between Emma Watson and Little Women. And then you have not Weird Al, excuse me, Daniel Radcliffe being in The Lost City and Weird Al Yankovic movie. And you have Rupert Grint doing M. Night Shyamalan's series Servants and now Knock at the Cabin. I think for Rupert Grint's performance, they've really come into their own as respected actors for sure. But the rest of these characters, Jonathan Groff and the girl Wen, I do apologize, I'm blanking on her name again, but everyone was just so fantastic in this movie. I was on the edge of my seat, honestly. And it's even Ben Aldridge. He's a very fiery, just mad at the world type of person. And you see that throughout the movie, how he has lost faith in humanity. I'm blanking on, I think, what was Ben's character's name? It was
Daddy Andrew.
What was Daddy Andrew?
Daddy Andrew. Speaking of that, there's a few really good jokes in the first half of this one. Always an M. Night staple to throw in some good jokes here and there. Really like that.
Yeah, and of course, M. Night makes a nice little appearance himself. We won't say when, but you'll definitely figure it out all together. But yeah, Ben Aldridge as Daddy Andrew, and then it was Daddy
Eric.
My gosh, Daddy Eric and Daddy Andrew. That's what it was. They're very basic names, so it's kind of easy to they kind of just go through your head, Andrew, Eric. So yeah, Daddy Andrew, Daddy Eric. Those are that is the couple that we follow in this movie. And Kristen Sue, who plays Wen. She is their adopted daughter because they wanted to start a family. And then, things kind of just go haywire in this movie. I'm trying to beat around the bush, and it feels like I'm talking a lot here because I really do enjoy this movie. And of course, we're not going to be giving spoilers here today, but it was interesting. I liked it. I usually don't care for M. Night Shyamalan movies for the most part. He's kind of 50-50 for me, but the way that this movie starts, it just reels you in.
And it just hits the ground running. As soon as the screen pops up, you just right into the into the action, basically, into the premise.
Yeah, right. And it's a small, cast and crew, but they really have made something special here. And I'm very interested to see how book readers are going to respond to this. Like I said, there is a very big difference. There's a really big twist that happens in the book that doesn't happen in the movies, but I wonder if they could have went a different way, knowing what I know for the ending of the book. I kind of understand why they didn't go that way, but I kind of want to see it play out on screen. But my friend, who I watched it with, she was at our screening. She had read the book and she said, for the most part, it's a pretty faithful adaptation all the way up until the end. That is what she said. And there's like a few small little adapted changes that they make, but of course they work all together. But yeah, it was a wild ride, but I'll pass it over to Devin. I know I've been talking here for a while. Is there anything else you wanted to mention before we get into our trivia section? Again, that will be non-spoiler trivia, so you guys don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I guess I'll give a couple of the things that I didn't really love about this one. I think the main thing is I would have liked some more background on these characters. They did have some flashback scenes for the two main characters, Andrew and Eric, which I thought did a pretty good job of showing their life so far and how they've come to grow that connection. I would have liked a little bit more there even then, and then more background for the four intruders, I guess you can say.
Yeah,
a couple, maybe a flashback scene for each of them as well. Because like you said, it is a short movie. I feel like there was a bit time to add in a little more background for these people, and then it would have added some weight to the things that occur throughout the movie.
I definitely agree there, and that's a good thing to bring up, because I almost kind of forgot about that. I've been talking, I'm such on a high of this movie, but I definitely want to see it again. My mom's like a big M. Night Shyamalan fan, so she's definitely going to be seeing it sometime this weekend. But I do agree, when it comes to the characters, we do get a little bit of their backstory, but it's very surface level. One thing I actually do want to talk about really quick is I love Ben Aldridge's performance altogether, but I felt like his character was maybe a little bit too angry at the world. I mean, obviously we see the flashbacks that happen between Eric and Andrew as they're becoming a couple. But it seems that Eric, these are both two gay men. Eric is more forgiving of the world and its mistakes, but Andrew sees the world in a different way. And he's very hot-headed. He's very temperamental. And I totally understand that. Like, I like that fiery passion with him, but I felt like he was just a tad too, little bit too angry. Like, let's watch the world burn type of angry.
That's the fun of it, when you can put yourself into the character's shoes and try to figure out how you would react to the situation.
Right. Yeah. But I guess between the two, I probably would lean more towards Eric, because that's just,
he was concussed, so I guess that might have an effect on it. I also wanted to know a bit more about their weapon choice. You see a bit of it in the trailer, but they have some very interesting weapons that you never really get any more information on.
We don't get a lot of information on them, but wow, those are some, like, that's like next level medieval, like
modern day medieval.
Yeah, like, I mean, it looked like they put a lot of time and effort into those weapons, and I was like, man, like, where can I get one of those? It was like a tricked out like gardening hose, or I don't know what it was, but they were pretty awesome. And I was like, you know what? They are ready for the end of the world altogether. But it was insane stuff. But yeah, I will say that was probably my biggest gripe, is Andrew's character just being a little bit too off the edge, not edgy, but just, I felt like he flies off the handle a little bit too often. But that is something that Eric, Jonathan Groff's character, sees in Andrew, and he accepts him for who he is anyway. So it is almost as if, Eric is the rock in the relationship. He is the one that keeps Andrew grounded, well, for the most part. But overall, it it was a nice relationship to kind of see flesh out. We definitely got more backstory with obviously the two characters and of course Wen, just a little bit. But yeah, overall it was a wild ride. You know, Abby Quinn, who plays Adrian, and then Nikki Amuka Bird, who plays Sabrina. They all killed it. I was like, wow, this is, you know, M. Night really just directed this movie in a really interesting way. And it kept me guessing because I was sitting there, I'm like, okay, like what's the twist? Like, where's it going to go? But knowing what I know now that it's an adaptation of the book, that kind of makes more sense, as there wasn't a big twist, but there are reveals that happen throughout the movie. So of course, we're not going to talk about that here today. But I'm just going to move over to trivia here for just a moment because I thought there was a few interesting tidbits here that we can kind of bring up. We already mentioned that this is a based off of a novel that came out in 2018 titled The Cabin at the End of the World. But I will also say for this next bit of trivia, M. Night Shyamalan cast Dave Bautista after he was impressed with his performance in Blade Runner 2049, which came out in 2017. So, again, to Devin's point, you know, Dave Bautista has been trying to just, you know, mold his acting career in a different way than other actors, or excuse me, other wrestlers turn actors. But I really like that Dave Bautista is experimenting with a lot of different genres. And I hope that, you know, he continues to explore different areas.
Yeah, I think that Blade Runner will definitely open people's eyes, obviously, from what this trivia says, confirms that.
And also, this was M. Night Shyamalan's second movie since Unbreakable, which came out in 2000, to be filmed in Panavision, which is like anamorphic. It seems a bit, I could kind of see that, just a little bit, but he also, M. Night Shyamalan himself, Knock at the Cabin was shot with 35 millimeter film, and Shyamalan and his photographer, they used these lenses from like the 1990s to give it that kind of like classic 90s thriller look in a way. I'm not sure if you really caught that. I feel like they kind of made that apparent, but it did have a specific look to it. A lot of Dutch angles as well. But the cinematography was very, very good. But that's all I really have for trivia. I didn't want to go too far. But actually, let me give out one more, because this is actually pretty interesting. So Sabrina, Nikki Amuka Bird, who plays Sabrina, and Rupert Grint have both worked with Shyamalan before. I'm not sure if you recognize Amuka Bird, but she was actually in Old in 2021. And then, of course, Rupert Grint was in Servant.
Yeah, was she the one that was a doctor or a nurse on the beach?
Yeah, no, wait, that was the guy who skips.
Yeah, the old man was a doctor, but I think she was like she had like the brain issues. I don't remember. Yeah.
It was something of that nature. I haven't watched it since we reviewed it, but yeah, it looks like Amuka Bird also worked with Shyamalan as well in the past. So that's actually pretty cool. You know, it is nice to see how other actors are willing to appear and work with, you know, directors again in multiple projects. It really shows the level of trust in this, and just the level of respect that they give each other. So I think that's pretty cool. But that is it for our quick trivia section. Those are just a few facts that I thought you guys would find interesting altogether. I didn't want to bore you too much, but this is a very interesting movie. And I think if you've either read the book or haven't read the book, you should definitely go watch this, because it is an M. Night Shyamalan movie at the end of the day. Like he brings people to the theaters. Butts are in seats when it comes to a Shyamalan movie, no matter how good or how bad they can be, like Avatar: The Last Airbender. But we're not going to talk about that. So with all that said, let's actually get into our final thoughts and our ratings. So I'll pass it back over to Devin so he can give his final thoughts and ratings on Knock at the Cabin.
Yeah, like we've been talking about, this movie has great direction and great performances from the whole cast, which kind of carries the movie. The story is pretty straightforward, but easy to follow, and I don't really see that as a bad thing, because That's kind of an issue for M. Night, where a lot of his stories just kind of come off the rails, and it's hard to reel it back in. But for this one, it just stays on the tracks and just kind of easy sailing. It's easy to follow, and there's no real hiccups throughout. And I will say the issues they had would have liked a little more background on the characters and kind of the lore and mythology of it all. Also, the ending isn't really going to blow anyone away. It's definitely better than the Glass ending. Like,
yeah, seriously.
It's going to be tough to top that one.
Yeah.
Puddles being the weakness. That was just all time rough ending.
Early days of the show as well, where we were just like, absolutely not. This is not for us. I will say for Old, the twist was very interesting. But when it came to Knock at the Cabin, a lot of my final thoughts pretty much echo Devin's. Would love to see more of the backstory of these characters. It could have been a little bit longer. I didn't know the runtime going into this movie, so I expected it to be at least 2 hours. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like by the time that the movie ended, I was like, was that 2 hours? It didn't feel like it. And I looked down at my phone. I was like, wow, it really was only like an hour 30, maybe hour 40.
Yeah, the runtime is hour 40. Right.
And that actually might bring more people to the theater, knowing that it is a shorter experience and they can still get some type of adrenaline rush out of it. But like Devin said, the ending it's nothing new, nothing big, nothing like aha or gaspy, but it is interesting. It does have a nice ending for sure. Devin, what would you give Knock at the Cabin for your rating?
I'm feeling like a solid 72. Like I said before, it definitely has some issues, but it stays on the tracks for the most of the ride, and I think I like that for a change from an M. Night movie. It's definitely a change, but kind of welcomed.
Yeah, I would agree with you there when it comes to the change. Like you said, it's very easy to follow. There's not a lot of plot threads or anything going on. I'm actually going to go a little bit lower and just give it like a 70 out of 100. But I really enjoyed it. Like, this is something that I would actually watch again with other people, like 100%. And, there's this weird like narrative where it's like, oh, if it's 70 or below or like anything 70s or below, then it's not a good movie. That doesn't mean that it's not a bad movie. We think people should see this because it is a fun, entertaining ride. And like Devin said, the performances carry the entire film because they have to. When it comes to situations like this, making an impossible choice when it comes to saving your loved ones or saving the 8 billion plus people on the planet. So overall, definitely go watch it this weekend. It's coming up. And yeah, it's a wild, wild ride. And with all that said, that is a wrap on today's episode. If you like what you heard on today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X to stay in the know. And make sure to share an episode of our podcast with a friend, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Make sure to share an episode of the Film Optix podcast with a movie lover in need. And really quick, let's take a sneak peek at what's coming up on the show. So what is on deck? We have our Last of Us episode 4 review, which will be releasing either the Monday and or Tuesday that it from its release on that Sunday. We're also going to be covering Cocaine Bear, and our Velma review is coming up here pretty quickly. So we're definitely going to be giving our spoiler thoughts on that show because, everyone's been hate watching it everyone says how bad it is, but everyone's been hate watching it. It's a very interesting show that I can't wait to talk about. But what is out now for you to listen to on the podcast, you can listen to our The Last of Us episodes 1 through 3 that are out on our podcast, as well as our Infinity Pool review that Devin and I covered last week, and our That 70s Show spoiler-free review as well. And with all that said, we'd like to thank you guys for listening. And remember, if you enjoy the show, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay in the know. I'm Christian. That was Devin signing off. And we'll see you guys in the next one.